What is up, good people? Crypto Prepper here. Today is Friday, April 3rd, 2026, and today we're starting out on the coin market cap chart. I think I need to do this more often because I think yesterday or the day before I actually saw the fear and greed index in the low 30s and it may have even been in this yellow range. So now we're back down to 28 fear. Um, and I don't know if I just don't think to start on this page because I don't feel fear or I do greed, still feel greed, but I just don't feel the fear in the market anymore. So I don't know what. But anyway, let's get started on doing bots on ETH. So yesterday or the day before the last video, anyway, I was in the search for the best Bitcoin bot of 2020 for 2026. So now I want to do a similar experiment on ETH. So what I did was I found a DCA bot that's on ETH that would have gotten a 10% APY over the last year. And just like I've talked about in previous videos, what I like to see on these back tests is a lot of activity. We really only had this one little pocket here where it was pretty boring for ETH anyway, between August 26th and September 24th. So almost a month, but other than that, it might have been a week and a half here. But 10% return is pretty good. It's better than you can get staking ETH, from what I understand. You only get 8% APY essentially, and it's calculated different maybe because it's paid back in ETH rather than dollars. So anyway, the other thing that I like to see on these back tests is continuation. So even after running this for a year, starting out with a minimum of $1,000, you've got $100 in your USDC wallet. Plus, the bot is still worth basically $1,000. So it has $1,000 that it can continue to purchase ETH at. And it'll protect you all the way down to about 12, a little less than $1,200. Okay, so let's go through these settings real quick because they are a little different than what I typically start out with. So our investment, like I briefly mentioned on that back test, is $1,000. That is the minimum that you need to start a DCA bot. So then we scroll down to bot settings. 3125 is our base order. 968.75 is our averaging orders amount. Our averaging orders quantity is 5. And then our averaging order step percentage is 9 on this one. So it's quite a bit deeper than um, it typically is. Usually I start that out at 5. Everything else has been pretty standard from my settings that I use. Um, but this one was 9. And then the amount multiplier is 2. So that way on each of these limit orders, it basically doubles your investment and brings that DCA down quicker. Okay. A step multiplier is off. You can see how that spreads those lines. And then our take profit, instead of being 5 for this, the last 365 days, 5 didn't get me as good of a return. And then it also didn't give me the continuation that I got with a price change of 3. So that means anytime it goes 3% above your DCA, it's going to take profit and then reset itself. Okay. And then the risk management pump dump protection is, as always, off. Okay. So we have our 365-day back test, and you can see it's going to pull that 10.47%. So then that got me thinking, what are we in store for 2026? So of course nobody knows. Um, but just like I was talking about with Bitcoin the other day or last video, is I think we're closer to the bottom than we are the next top or whatever. So and that's not hard to say, because we've fallen down quite a bit in the whole market. So the bot settings for 2026 will be um, mainly a range for DCA bots. Okay, so here we have the same settings. We've got Coinbase. You can use these on Kraken too. ETH USDC pair, $1,000 investment, 31.25, 968.75, 5, and then for what I'm gonna refer to as the bull market, because I think we're ending the bear market, even if we might see quite a bit of sideways chop. This bot will still do well on that. Um, but what I want to try to prep for is more action like this from April 3rd-ish to October 5th, where everybody, and most people now say that, that's the top. And even though it didn't quite make a higher high here, um, that was right before that October 10th capitulation that basically was the major sign that the top was in. Um, so instead of going August 27th, I just went October 5th because we have about 6 months in between April and October, and we have 6 months in between October and now. So I thought ETH is a perfect example for this because it gives me a really nice, and Bitcoin was a good example to do this too. But um, anyway, what I came up with was 3% here for the averaging order step. And then I went back to our standard take five or take profit at 5%. And then let's just double check, make sure I have my pump stump protection off. And you can see the back test. You probably already saw that little note there that this, if I, and I also did a back test only for that time period. So I already had that set up, but I forgot to mention it before clicking that button. So what I did was I changed the backtest settings so it only went back from April 3rd to October 5th. And with these settings, you see it made a 30% ROI, but not quite an APY because it's not a year. But you started with 1,000 here, and then you ended with 1,300 if you stop the bot at that point. So I try to stay out of the thought process because I think it's harmful, at least to me, and it might probably is to a lot of people, where they are thinking that, oh yeah, well I could have bought it here and sold it here and made 300%. Well, yeah, but only if you did that. And most people don't buy the bottoms, and most people don't sell the tops, and you cannot do that consistently. So, 30% ROI in 6 months is pretty damn good. And you, you can't play that shoulda, woulda, coulda game and said, oh yeah, I could have bought it here and I could have sold it here. Anyway, hopefully I'm preaching to the choir on that, but I know that is a huge hurdle to get over. Huge. I think um, it probably took me 3, 4 years to get over that hurdle while using these bots. And just so I don't know. It might take you shorter or longer. Everybody's different. But anyway, 30% return. And this is a lot of activity. We don't have any, here's maybe a week and a half. Let's see, August 29th to September. So maybe 2 weeks here that we had no activity. And then we can see if you still had this bot running at these settings. It's probably not much more than that 30.72. Yeah. So, because once we hit that October 10th capitulation, um, you basically holding on, it's purchased the ETH here, and then that ETH has fallen 50%. So you probably only have uh, a little less than $500 in ETH, but you have the $300 in USDC. So you're really only down 20% when the market has more than, well, let's see, from even just from here, it's halved. So that's where it's kind of tricky because, um, you don't want to just, I'm not going, oh, I'm not giving you advice. So when I say you don't, I'm just saying myself. I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket, but I want to optimize my gains during the bulls and bears. So what I would do if I wanted to set up bots on ETH, and I do like ETH, but right now I've got all my bots set up in XRP because I think XRP still has more upside than ETH. But anyway, and it's nothing against ETH. ETH is fine, and it's going to stick around. It's one of the top three coins that have been in the top 10 its whole entire life, right? So I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon, except for, continuing going up and to the right. But what I would do to set up ETH bots and what I did with my XRP bots is I set up a range. So I staggered them. And so each bot, like I said, the minimum you want to start this out is with 1,000. But you can always click and drag this, and it's going to use whatever you have in your USDC wallet. And so that's where the percentage comes in. Uh, you might be up here, but you could scroll it all the way up and then max that out for that one bot. But you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, but you could maybe put 5% in this one, 5% in the next, so on and so on. And then you're going to stagger the averaging order step percent. So you could start one out at 3, one out at 3.5. And let's see what the back test would have gotten you there. 33.95. So even better. But in that 6 months time frame, it would not have been as good. I couldn't tell you the exact numbers. Oops. But when I was playing around with that timeline of those 6 months, that back test did not come back as good. But you don't want to just set it up for the short term, 6 months. You can set some up for that time, or I want to set up some for that time, but I want to also maximize the gains and have activity going on even in a bear market. So you saw the last one that I set up here that got a 10% over the year. That went to all the way to 9. So now knowing that, you one could set up a range of these and have 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, 8, 8.5, 9, 9.5, or 9, 9. How many ever you wanted to do with $1,000 each, or whatever you felt comfortable putting in these. Okay, so like I did with Bitcoin yesterday, I also wanted to compare the old bots that I used to use, which are known as grid bots. And so what you basically do is you lay out your grid, and then each time it goes down, the delegated or allocated percentage it buys, it goes up that percentage it sells, and for a gain. So you can see on this one, the 365-day back test was 16.75, which was better than our back test on this one, where it had all that activity. We can see 10.72, right? Or 10.47, sorry. Okay, so then this grid bot beat that out. But of course, in the 6 months that the other one would have gotten, uh, shoot, let's do this real quick because I want to compare apples to apples. Let's see. So if I just go back to April 4th to October 5th on ETH using these more conservative settings, you can see that during that first 6 months, it made 4.44%. Okay, so you should be happy with that, right? Because it's more than you're getting in your bank. But when you see bot settings that can get you 30%, 33% that you've seen so far, 4% kind of, but so setting up this bot would be able to protect you over the whole year, but those first 6 months, it's not going to look as nice. So that's where you got to make your decision and figure out which way you want to go. But there's nothing wrong with setting multiple bots up on the same pair with a DCA, and then with the grid bots, you have to use a different pair because it won't let you set it up on the ones you've had DCA bots on. And there's really not a huge advantage of setting up multiple grid bots on the same pair anyway, because basically you're setting that grid and boom, it doesn't make sense to set up multiple grids. You just expand your grid if you want to minimize your risk. Um, okay, so let's talk about these settings here real quick. So just like I did with Bitcoin the other day, and then the original video got me thinking about this was Litecoin. But so I went back to that April 3rd date. So if I were to set up any of these bots, I could only do the back test 365 days ago. So I'm just going back as far as I can. And I take my measurement tool from the left here, the current price, and I mark down 50%, and then I mark up 50%. And then what I did, oops, maybe I didn't. Here, let's do it together real quick. Maybe I didn't do this like I uh, int intended to, excuse me. So, like I said before, it doesn't have to be exact, but I've got my top buy line here, or my sell line here, and my bottom buy line down here. Okay. So then I do my back test. And let's see if I messed up when I did this earlier. I bet I didn't put it in there. So it didn't change a lot, 16.01. And what we see with these grid bots is you see when we set the range here, it went down, caught that dip, and then sold and bought all the way up. And then it trailed up because I think 50% only took us to here. So it trailed all the way up and then took out these buy orders underneath to continue making you money. And trailing up is on default, and then pump protection is on by default too. And let's see, because I left that on, let's see how much that changes it. Maybe that's the main thing that oh no, that didn't change it at all here on the grid bot. So it may not matter as much on the grid bot as it does um the DCA bot for pump dump protection. But so during this timeline, it basically tripled and then came back, and now it's at the same price essentially as it was a year ago. So most people have bought at whatever time. They didn't sell any at the top because of greed and FOMO staying in the market, and now they're too afraid to do anything. Maybe hopefully they're buying more. But if you were to set the spot up with $1,000, how now have 1,100 bucks. Um, and you have 160 in your USDT wallet, and this bot is still working for you, so you might as well not touch it. But if you did need to get cash out, like I mentioned yesterday in the Bitcoin video, it's easy to remove these lower buy lines and free up that capital. So, but then just keep in mind that lessens your protection on the downside. But it is easier to do that than it is um, the DCA bots because you have to close those to get that capital out. So you could get your capital, get some capital out of these bots without closing them. But you can see the same settings that we had where I measured up and down on the ETH USDT pair for the first 6 months of that, where it did basically nothing but go up. It gave you an 8% gain versus the 4% that this one, 4.4%. So a grid bot in that case would have treated you better than the grid bot that protected you for the entire year. But like I said, maybe not keep all your eggs in one basket, but I'm not your financial advisor, so you do you. All right, so that is it. I think, yeah, that is it for this video. Hopefully that helped you figure out what could be the best bot settings for ETH in 2026 based on your risk tolerance. All right, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more of these videos, hit the subscribe button and leave me your favorite coin in the comments and I'll run some bots on them. All right, thanks for watching and see you on the next one.